Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video what I thought I'd do with you is share a few different cruise tips for solo travellers, solo cruisers. It might be that you're booking your first solo cruise now, it might be you have one booked and you're just trying to get an idea of some of the kind of gotchas and things to look out for on your first solo cruise. I've been very fortunate now to do 11 cruises, some solo and some with family, but I've managed to pick up a few tips and tricks which I think will help you on your way. So in this video we're going to go through a few of the kind of tips that I've found to help you on your way for your first solo cruise.
Welcome back to the channel.
Ready for another cruise? Let's go!
Now my first tip is with actually regards to booking your solo cruise. So as you're kind of approaching and looking at kind of booking a particular cruise and what have you, try and look for the cruises that have no solo supplement. Quite often, a lot of the time, unfortunately, because of different kind of cabin layouts and occupancy rates and stuff like that, cruise lines will have a solo supplement on board their cruise and in their cabin, which is a bit unfortunate, but you kind of understand it. But there are cruise lines out there that don't have a solo supplement on certain voyages, and they actually have cabins that are designed in the first place for solo travellers. So it's really good to kind of have a little bit of a research beforehand. There's loads of lovely websites out there that can highlight particular cruise lines and cruises that don't have a solo supplement, and that just allows you to get kind of the best possible price for your voyage. One particular example that you'll be seeing on the screen now is MSC Cruises. They're quite good and have a particular page on their webpage where you can go through and have a look at particular cruises that don't have a solo supplement. So that's just quite handy to kind of do a bit of research and obviously see where you can get the best rate and the best deal possible for your solo travel. Now, tip number 2 is to have a look at the different solo events and activities that are running on board your cruise ship. Now, when you get on board, there'll be usually a daily planner, whether it's in an app or in a physical form in your cabin, and it will run through the different events that are on that particular cruise and that particular day. Quite often, a lot of the time, somewhere on that kind of planner, there'll be an activity for solo travellers. Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's an evening affair, and it could be anything from a coffee meet up to a little bit of a party, various different kind of options depending on the cruise line. But you're going to have a look at the particular planner, see what time it's on, and obviously go along and meet fellow solo travellers. And that's a really, really useful way there of meeting people as well that you could potentially enjoy a bit of the ship with, do some trivia with. It might be that you want to go off and do an excursion together, or maybe you just want to sit and have a chat and talk about your experience. But it's a really lovely way of meeting people, and in particular fellow solo travellers. So just have a look at the planner and gauge if there's any particular events that you want to do on your cruise. Now, tip number 3 sounds like a little bit of a strange one, but it's something that I've always kind of done, and that's to make sure that you've got the appropriate contact details, emergency contact details and stuff saved, on your paperwork / on your booking, just so that obviously if you do kind of venture off on your own, you've got some emergency details should something happen for you. Likewise, I kind of feel like it's quite important. I usually message someone back home and tell them, I'm getting off the ship and going for a walk here, or I'm going for an explore there, just so they have a rough idea of where you are, so that if there is an emergency, they might be able to contact you, or likewise, that you've got some details there ready for the cruise line or an emergency service to contact them in the event of an incident. I know that sounds a little bit silly and extreme, but it's just a handy little tip to have, just to make sure that you're covered in the event of any kind of accident or emergency. Now, tip number 4 is one of my favourite things to do, and that is to talk to the crew. Now, obviously, these cruise lines employ a variety of staff from all over the world, and it's always really lovely to talk to them and hear about their experiences, get to know them a little bit, who's back home, how long they've been on board, all those wonderful kind of things and what have you. And quite often, a lot of the time as well, when you're solo travelling, you'll find that a lot of crew are willing to, come over and chat with you, or just spend a bit more time with you. You'll find that they just want to hear about your story, why are you travelling alone, what are you getting up to, and it's just really, really lovely to see and do. I quite often like talking to the crew and stuff, in different bars and restaurants, and what can actually happen as well is you'll find that they'll give you the tips and tricks that, not necessarily many other people know. You'll also find that sometimes, if cruise ships have it, there might even be a little kind of invitation to a private event. Virgin Voyages have been known to do some private events and stuff, and the best way of finding about these events is by talking to crew. Other times, MSC for example, there might be a secret bar location, and again, to get invites to that, you've got to talk to people. So if you talk to the crew, learn a bit about their experiences and stuff, chat with them, you never know what you might get. You might get an invite to a private event. bar, party, whatever it may be. So either way though, it's just lovely to get to know your fellow crew and what have you, and just enjoy some time with them and just learn about their experiences while on board. Now tip number 5 is one that's very similar to a tip that I shared just for kind of cruises in general, particularly new cruisers. But tip number 5 is all about being vigilant while you're alone, particularly as you head into new ports. So it kind of encompasses doing a little bit of research prior to getting off the ship and learning about where you're visiting, where the ship's going to dock, any particular travel requirements, if you need a visa, anything like that. Learning about where you're docking and kind of how far you can travel and then kind of get back to the port, different transport options, stuff like that, just so you've got an idea of the things to look out for when you do kind of venture off the ship and go and enjoy these places. Obviously it's a new place, you're not familiar with it, so it's just handy kind of get a bit of an idea as to where you are and the different options you've got to get back to the ship. And it also remains obviously to be kind of a little bit vigilant if you are traveling solo, just to kind of keep a little bit of extra wits about you in terms of your belongings, any bags, any kind of jewelry or anything like that. Just be a little bit vigilant. These ports and stuff are usually very kind of well secured, guarded, and the locals are very friendly often. However, that being said, obviously it is still an unfamiliar place a lot of the time, so just be a little bit of extra careful, particularly if you are a solo traveller. Tip number 6 then is all about booking in advance. Now, quite often a lot of the time when you're booking a solo cabin, it pays usually to book quite far in advance. Not always, but there are some really good deals available, particularly if you can get a booking in quite far ahead of time. For example, as I mentioned earlier, there are some cruise lines that have cabins that are particularly dedicated for solo travellers. Norwegian have been known to do it, and Virgin Voyages as well have some cabins that are dedicated for solo people. Now, that's kind of really good, but the only thing with that is that there's usually not very many of them, so it just pays to get a booking in quite far in advance, because then you can lock in that cabin before obviously it goes to someone else. In the event that it does, you're usually left with the cabins then that are usually for double occupancy, and that's when you then start to obviously get the solo supplements creeping in. So if you are able to book a cabin and a cruise in a far advance, then I definitely recommend doing that, as you can often save a little bit of money and get quite a nice little solo cabin as well. Now tip number 7 isn't for everyone, but I know there are a few people that like to do it, and it does help as well, spread the cost and what have you and save a little bit of money, and that is look on the Facebook groups and various other platforms for someone to potentially share a cabin with. Now obviously if you're looking to do kind of a solo cruise as such, but you don't want to pay the double occupancy rate or anything like that, you can quite often find people on Facebook groups that are willing to share a cabin. Obviously then it means that you are in the same cabin, but you can split the beds quite a lot of the time and have twin beds and what have you, and still go off and obviously do your own thing and just utilize the cabin as kind of like a a sleep space and what have you. Obviously this depends on how comfortable you are sharing with a potential stranger. It might be you've got a friend that you can invite, it might be that you can kind of get to know someone over a period of time and then do this. Again, it's totally down to personal preference. We haven't done that yet, we always just kind of travel solo generally, but I know that there are a lot of people on Facebook that do it and enjoy it, and it works really well. Obviously you save a little bit of money while still enjoying a particular cruise, and have the chance to do your own thing. So it's entirely up to you and your preference, but it is one option available to save a little bit of money. Now tip number 8 then, I think is the most important one when it comes to solo travel, and that is to not worry and just try and enjoy yourselves and get out there and explore. Quite often a lot of the time people do come up and chat with you and wonder why you're travelling solo, why you haven't got family with you, and there's a lot of kind of skepticism around the world now, kind of why you necessarily travel alone as opposed with your family or partner or whatever it may be. But sometimes it's just nice to have a break on your own and do your own thing. I love cruising as a family, I love cruising with my partner, but it is also nice cruising solo as you get your own space and a chance to do your own thing. What's fantastic about cruising is that it's quite often a lot of the time something for everyone. However, when you start adding more people, and particularly families and kids and stuff into that, you're then kind of often jumping from one thing to another to make sure everyone's happy. Whereas when you're solo, you can go off and do your own thing. If you want to lay by the pool all day, you can. If you want to go and do a quiz or an excursion, whatever it may be, you've got that opportunity to, without having to worry about disappointing someone else. So my kind of best advice and what have you is to just go for it. You might not like solo cruising, it might be something that you fall in love with and decide to do once every now and then. I've got a lot of friends and what have you that enjoy solo cruising, and enjoy cruising as a family. And it's nice to do a bit of both and get that balance as well. So my kind of advice is to get up there, just be brave. People are really, really friendly. I've had so many occasions where I've been sat at a dinner table at my own, and the table next to me will quite heavily chat with me, you know, ask me about my family, ask me about my cruise, my experiences. You meet people in bars and you get to know them, you know, you can do activities together, trivia, whatever it may be. So you really will have a fantastic time solo. The crew will be fantastic, and the people that you sail with on board as well, you will definitely make friends. You'll just have a lovely, lovely time. So there we have it then. That is 8 tips there for solo cruises. Obviously I've done a few different solo cruises now, so these are just a few kind of the tips and tricks that I've picked up from doing these cruises now throughout my time. Of course, if I've missed any, please consider leaving a comment down below, as I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, what tips you've picked up, and obviously you may help out a fellow cruiser as well. If you've got any questions about my experiences or anything like that, then please leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But that's going to be all for this video. If you're new to the channel, I would please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. We are very close to 2,500 subscribers, and it'll be fantastic to hit that milestone soon. In the meantime though, that's going to be all for this video. Many thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Welcome back to the channel.
Ready for another cruise? Let's go!